Cloud. Okay. All right. So I'm Diane Sears, and I'm with Go for the Greens, and I want to welcome everyone. We are a nonprofit that helps women business owners, and we've had great success in also starting a mentorship program in the past couple of years. And this is part of it. So this is the seventh installment of our mentorship program webinar series, and I want to present to you two of our great speakers. We have Morgan Calhoun. Morgan, can you please say hello for us?
Hi, how are y'all doing?
Good, we're looking forward to hearing from you. And Kristin Schneider, can you please say hello?
Hello, everybody. Good to talk with y'all.
Great, thanks. And I'll be the third person who's going to be interviewed today. Our topic is about media and entertainment. So all three of us are in media and entertainment. And we have two very special people who are going to be doing the interviewing. So I want to see whether Leslie is ready. Absolutely. We have Leslie Garcia-Medina. Can you say hello?
Hi, everyone.
Good. And Leslie just ran in from the car, so you're doing really well. And then we have Jasmin Alanis. And Jasmin, can you say hello?
Hello, everyone.
Okay. And so with that, I am going to turn over the microphone to Jasmin and Leslie, and you go ahead and ask your questions.
Okay. So like I said earlier, my name is Leslie Garcia-Medina. I am a student at Harmony Science Academy in Dallas, and I've been working with Go for the Greens for the past few months to create these webinars. I don't know if Jasmin wants to jump in and say a little bit about herself before we go to our questions.
Yeah, so I'm Jasmin, and I'm from Dallas, Texas, where I'm a student at UT Dallas, where I study marketing and global business. Like Leslie, I've been working with the lovely ladies at Go for the Greens and organizing these webinars. And yeah, we're super excited for today's presentation.
So just a reminder, our chat is open. If you guys have any questions or any comments, you guys can tell or type them in the chat and we'll make sure to get to them. And also, before we get started, Jasmin and I wanted to thank our panelists, Morgan, Kristin, and Diane, for joining us today. I think it's really cool that since we've been working on these webinars, we get to interview women from all kinds of industries. And although careers like finance, engineering, and all those other stuff are very loved and appreciated, we're giving our undivided attention, like Diane said, to the media and the entertainment industries. So our first question is, how does y'all's everyday schedule look like, and what's your favorite part about your job?
Morgan, you go first.
I can start. This question is very interesting because it's changed a lot since COVID, obviously. I'm back in Dallas now. I was auditioning full-time in New York before everything happened. And during that time, my days looked different every day, which was kind of cool. I might have an audition I needed to get to, and then I'd go to work at the restaurant at night. I'd be working on different scenes in between that, making my own projects. I recently wrote and produced my first short film this year, which is really like my baby. But now it's totally changed, and my days look like doing a lot more audition tapes, taping myself, recording the lines of the other character, and basically talking to a wall, which isn't as fun as being able to connect with another human being. So things have really changed a lot. I've been writing a lot of my own work and trying to create content without contact with other people, and just getting really creative about how we can adapt to these times.
Kristin, you want to go next?
Absolutely. So, hey, everybody. My name is Kristin Schneider, and I'm publisher of Women's Enterprise magazine. And so, as publisher of a magazine, my days are different always. It's a given fact when you're in media. It's very cyclical. So, we publish on a quarterly basis, and I'm publisher of 2 magazines and general manager of 2 more. So, overall, I have 4 magazines publishing quarterly, that's 16 magazines a year. So every day is a little bit different. One day might be looking at what type of content. One day might be pursuing different leads for stories. One day might be spending 20 hours in a day reviewing a magazine because it's about to go to print. So just be aware that look at an industry that you're going in, because it might have very specific requirements about the type of work you're doing. My days will never be 8 to 5 on a regular basis. It's just not what we do. But there's a certain joy in it. And I was lucky because I knew that in advance. But our teams, we might do a week where it's almost 24/7 work, and then we'll have a week that's quiet. So every day is a little tiny bit different in that cycle of the very beginning of the magazine, that seed, all the way to it being the beautiful magazine that it is.
Well, I'm going to agree to that. Both of you, I have days where I think it's going to be this, and it turns out to be that. So every day is really different, and it doesn't matter how much I plan. Sometimes you are just covering the news. So I come from a breaking news kind of background in newspapers. So I was used to having to write a story, an article, or maybe 3 articles by the end of the day, that kind of thing, breaking news. And now I'm working with a monthly magazine. So I'm the editor and publisher of a monthly magazine that it only covers business news in Central Florida. So I'm happy I don't have to stand in the middle of fields looking at bodies with the police or anything like that. The things you see on TV, they really do happen. But my days are spent sometimes interviewing somebody for an article, and then other times, handling things like paying the bills for the magazine, or trying to work with a company that wants to purchase some ads, and trying to figure out what that looks like throughout the year. So it's been real education getting into the publishing piece, and instead of just being maybe a reporter. It's been really fun. Yeah. And the other thing I was going to say is right now we're introducing a television show, and it will actually be on YouTube. So now I'm learning how to be in front of the camera, and I've always been kind of behind the scenes. So that's been really, really different. So, and you know that, Morgan.
Yeah.
Right. Just speaking to a camera instead of speaking to an audience is quite different, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fascinating just hearing about your work. And usually when I hear stories like these, I always wonder about their journey and how they got there. So for our next question, I really want to take it way to the beginning of your careers and ask, how did you figure out your niche, and what drew you to these areas? Why did you start pursuing this career?
And who do you want to start with? You should
We
say.
can start with Morgan again.
Okay. I love this question. My journey has been so all over the place. I started modeling and doing commercials when I was 8 years old. So I've been in the entertainment industry for 21 years. And it's been interesting because I started so young. So there's been periods of my life where I actually wasn't acting or doing anything in front of the camera, and really taking that space to myself to learn something different or go in a totally different direction. Because if we're being honest, acting is a very hard career. There's so much rejection that comes with it. And if I've learned anything over these years, you need something else that's going to really fulfill you, whether that's creating your own work or having some other hobby, something that really makes you fulfilled on those days where it just feels like, wow, it's never going to happen for me. I did my first film when I was in high school. Really through college, I went to UT Austin, studied radio, television, and film. So I learned kind of the behind the scenes, learning about screenwriting and producing and how to make my own projects. So I could really have that autonomy in creating my own work. If no one wanted to hire me as an actor, I could hire myself if I needed to. And from there, I actually, after college, even though I was working and doing films and commercials all through that time, after college, it was like this moment of like, well, now I need to get a real job and you know, climb the corporate ladder and make my parents proud. And I did that for 5 years. I worked in brand development, in marketing, and I really enjoyed kind of creating a product from scratch and seeing it come to life, but it just wasn't really my passion. I knew acting was really it for me after trying so many other different things and different avenues. So after 5 years in corporate, I quit my job and moved to New York to pursue acting full time. And it was New York. I learned more in 1 year than I learned, I feel like, in my entire career. It really pushes you out of your comfort zone and shows you the grit that it takes to make it. But even in that, I learned in that year that yes, focusing more on my career is great, but I do need something that's going to really fulfill me on those days when you're getting so many no's and you're just like, what is it that's gonna keep me going in this? Even though I had a representation in New York, even though I was getting auditions, when you're getting so many no's, it can make you have a lot of self-doubt. And it's so important whether you're, like I said, making your own pieces, writing, and doing anything that's going to give you that joy and remind you of why you're pursuing this craft. You definitely need something to kind of balance all that out.
Oh, very good. Kristin, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. So I've always loved the written word. It's something that I really, I love words. I never just walk. I skip, or I, meander, or I was very artistic as a child with my explanations of why I did things to my parents. So I knew from a very young age that I enjoyed the written language. And so over time, as I had the chance to realize, like, you could make a career with writing, that was a big revelation to myself. And I really decided on my direction largely in high school. I don't think I had realized I had decided, but after doing an internship at a magazine in high school, the very last day I went to the very scary publisher. Now I know her well and she's amazing, but at the time, the very scary publisher, and asked if she would read one of my papers, and never heard back from her until a few months later, my first year in college. He sent me a message and said, "I'm willing to overnight. Do you want to write an article for me? And this is your audition to become one of my freelancers." So I said yes, and I got a cassette with an interview on it, and I got 0 instructions on what to do. And I was told, write this as proof that you can be a writer. And so I ended up freelancing for about 10 years. And as I went through my undergrad and my graduate degrees, and then a similar path to Morgan, joined corporate America. I went to a big consulting firm and was in their management practice. And after a few years, I realized that I really wanted my love back, my written word. And so I ended up, freelancing a bit longer, doing communications. And then this publisher role opened after being at my current company a few years. And I said, that's mine. It's what I want. So it was a very exciting day that it was announced. My boss actually surprised me and announced it to a room before he told me. So hearing that title in front of my name was a huge accomplishment because it was something that I truly love, and that made it worthwhile, all that work.
That's so cool. Well, I had an interesting experience in the way I got into journalism. I knew that I wanted to be a writer from the time I was in, a little tiny kid. And I remember being in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and my teacher said, "You have a writer's bump on your finger." And she said, "That means you're going to be a writer." And I went, "Yeah, everybody knows that." So I already knew, right? So, but I thought I was going to write the great American novel. And that was what I was planning to do. And I didn't, I wrote a lot when I was a kid, but I was more, I guess, inquisitive about what was going on. I was always studying the news and all that. So when I was in high school, I was transferring from one school to another, and I was trying to get in the yearbook class, and they said, "Well, the yearbook class is full, but we could offer you the newspaper." And for one thing, I thought, how could it be full? You know, I mean, surely there's room for one more person. But I said, newspaper, that's for nerds. And it was so funny. So they said, well, you know, then you can just take another class, like another math class or something. And I said, oh, I'll go. So I went into the newspaper class and I never looked back. It was so much fun. To this day, I still have some of my closest friends are the friends that I had in college in the newspaper staff. And so, I worked at newspapers for a long time through high school, through junior college, through big college at University of Florida. And then when I got out of school, I started at a smaller newspaper. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to get more experience. I think that's really maybe one thing that I would advise if you were going into this profession, because I got to be an assistant Metro editor, which I never would have done if I'd started out at a bigger paper. So I was actually making assignments and that kind of thing, in addition to editing articles. So then, I was chasing the money and chasing, a bigger experience and more, I don't know, glamour. I'm just teasing. But so I transferred to a bigger newspaper, and when I did, it was so boring. I was sitting behind a desk the whole time, just watching other people work and have fun and go out and do stuff, and I was copy editing. And so 3 weeks into it, I said, I am bored out of my mind. I wish we'd have a fire drill or something just so I could get out of this room. And so I knew I had to go into reporting because I just needed to be out in the public. And since then, I've been going back and forth between reporting and editing, and I've had my own business for about 20 years and doing books. So I've kind of fulfilled that part too, mostly nonfiction books. But I have I get to do nonfiction books, magazines, articles, and all kinds of things. So it's been a really fun career.
Wow, that's honestly, it's very interesting to think about how much things can change. And like, if you go back and you look at your beginning of your career to like now, look back and like everything that challenged you, everything you've accomplished. And I mean, speaking for Jasmine and myself, whenever we entered Go for the Greens for the first year, I remember we were both super nervous. We were like, I think it was both of our first times on planes, or it might have been just mine, but it was both of our first times. And so we were both very nervous. It was my first time traveling outside of like Garland, like the area that I live. So there were so many firsts that was going on. And so now looking back at it and seeing like what we're doing now to like how we started, it's very, it's amazing to see how life works. So hearing that other people started in the same place that we are is definitely very helpful, to understand that everybody starts somewhere and eventually that one place is going to lead you to where you are now. And so it's necessary to fail, and it's necessary to have, those challenges. So with that being said, our next question is, what are some things that you wish you would have known at the start of your career? So we're going to start with Morgan, and then with Kristin, and then Diane, as we've been doing. That way it's not confusing.
Oh man, what is it that I wish I would have known at the start of my career? I think because I started so young, so much of how I approach my craft is like from a business perspective. It's like I have my spreadsheet of all my auditions and I keep everything organized. And while some of that is great, a lot of creative people don't have that skill set. Just injecting more of that fun, more of that spontaneity into my work. I feel like that's something as I've gotten older that I just wish I had more of that and more of that kind of freedom as I'm creating. I can get so much in my head and wanting to be perfect. And like you just said about perfectionism and failing, it's so important to fail. And I think that I wish that I had that ingrained in me from the beginning, that it's like failing is a good thing. Like we need to embrace this because like you said, we're going to learn from that and be able to grow and build on top of that. And every little piece of our journey is connected and it happens for a reason. And if we don't learn those things, I always think I'd rather learn these things on a small scale when I don't have a lot of eyes on me, rather than kind of getting to the top where everyone's looking at you, fall on your face, you know, and even those things we can learn from. So really just wanting to have more of that mindset from the beginning, and just embracing every step of the way of that journey.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, agreed. Following that's hard. That's perfect advice. I would add to learn to invest your time. Like Morgan said, she has a spreadsheet. She keeps track of what she's doing. She is investing in not only her present auditions, but she's also looking at the future and the past auditions when she's doing that. And so it's very easy to get caught up in what today. Say you're taking a college class and you have a quiz this week, you have a test next week, and you're so focused on that. You want to make sure to block part of your time, and so that you're going to have some amount that you're going to invest in what you're doing currently and some amount that you're going to invest in your future. Are you spending time every week learning a new skill? Are you spending time every week making connection points? And these are things that I do every day. I have a sheet next to me, write it all out. It is, if it's in your head, it doesn't count. Make that Excel sheet or whatever. I'm a pen and paper. I have a pen and paper. I have three blocks. I have things I have to get done today. I have long-term projects that I need to make progress on. And I have a spot for impromptu, oh, look, there's a fire. Let's go put it out. But I make fire does not knock the other two off my calendar, because otherwise you're in an endless cycle of, shoot, this is late, I got to get it done. So make sure that you're investing in your present and your future and blocking time on your calendar to do so.
That's amazing. I'm going to write this down.
A lot of trial and error went into that answer.
It's so true. Oh my gosh, I'm so inconsistent. I'll write it down for a while and then I don't write it down for another while. The thing I wish I had known was about following the money. You know, I've always heard, follow what you love and the money, do what you love and the money will follow. And that's a really cool piece of advice. And I think it's true to an extent, but you have to help it follow you. So when I was interviewing for my first job out of college, I interviewed for one job and I knew that it paid a lot of money. Now back then, I have to say $18,000 was a lot of money. It's not right now necessarily, but so I went to this other newspaper, and I knew that they paid probably around $12,000. So they said, well, what do you anticipate making? And you guys will learn this when you learn about interview skills. So, you know, what kind of salary do you require? So I said, well, right now in college, I make about $4,000 a year. So if you can top that, I'll be pretty happy. And they laughed and they said, oh yeah, we can do that. And I said, but this other job that I'm looking at pays $18,000. If you can top that, then that'll be better. And I handled it with humor. And do you know what? They said we can almost match that. And it turned out I came in and I was making more than the other people around me because I knew how to negotiate. So that was pretty cool. But I didn't really, nobody taught me that. Nobody taught me how to follow the money and how to make sure in my career that I was always going to be making good money. And it was only when I got out of journalism, and the reason I got out was because I realized that I was going to be, working for a daily newspaper, and I would only be able to make like 3% more income every year, no matter what I did, no matter how hard I worked. And I was really hard. I was writing circles around everybody else. And so, I wanted to be in a place where I could control more my own destiny and my own salary. And I feel like I've attained that now, and that's really a good thing. So that's something you really have to think about is money. Unless you marry somebody who's wealthy, then you don't worry about it. But I want to be my own Prince Charming,
Amen.
That's the line I'm writing down. I love that.
Hey, I stole that. I totally stole that from somebody else. So don't attribute it to me, but it's a cool line.
I have to interrupt 1 second. This is, you said Prince Charming. You meant Princess Charming.
There we go, Cindy. Thank you. My business partner is wonderful.
So it's been so inspiring hearing your stories and just how you pursued what you love. And when you're young, well, personally for me, when I was younger, I would see people on TV and I would be like, oh my gosh, I want to be just like them. I want to be an actress. And then I also wanted to be an author. I wanted to write my own books and stuff like that. But as you got older, there's a stigma that you have to choose a career that provides security, that that is realistic in a way. And so for our next question, it sort of relates to your last response, Diane, and it's, what advice would you give to someone that is scared to pursue a career in areas like acting, journalism, and the arts in general? Careers that sort of have that stigma that they're not secure, and you need to be a bit more realistic.
Oh, yes.
We can,
what'd you say?
oh, no, I was going to say we can do the same.
Okay.
The same order.
Let's take this one first, definitely. Successful actress.
Yes, very tough. It's definitely something that I have been learning on the fly. So since I worked for 5 years in corporate, I saved a ton before moving to New York because I wanted to make sure I was being responsible and giving myself that buffer and that space to really go after my dreams without having to stress every second about how I was going to pay my bills. And then as I was there a little bit longer, it was like, okay, how do I find a job where I can still audition if I get the audition the day of sometimes, and it's going to give me that flexibility if I book the role and I'm going to be gone for like a whole week sometimes, because sometimes it would involve travel and things like that. And really the things that I've found that have worked the most are the typical like restaurant, which can be very soul-sucking work sometimes, and then working for yourself, having your own business, because then for me, like as an artist, we need something that we're gonna feel really passionate about, because working in a restaurant, it's flexible, it gives you that flexibility you need, but it's not going to be something that's for the long term is going to really motivate you and make you feel like, okay, I can keep doing this so it can support my dreams. Starting something that's your own, you can set your own hours. It's something you're also passionate about. And really it's something where they can kind of work hand in hand. Like right now I'm working on something for myself within like the wellness space. And that to me goes really hand in hand with being on camera, wanting to look and feel your best, having high energy and things like that. There are other like gigs and things that you can do, but I feel like working for yourself and finding a way to make money doing that is probably the most motivating way you're going to be able to financially support yourself until the acting takes off for you.
Mm-hmm. Great advice.
Yeah. I second Morgan's answer. I mean, you have to be realistic, not in a crushing way, but like for myself, I'm single. So paying my rent, putting food on the table, owning a table, all of those, I mean, I have to pay for them. And so at the end of the day, I love art. Art is my hobby. It's my passion. But I know if I decided, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to quit being a publisher, I'm going to be an artist, I would be in trouble. I have to pay for a car, an apartment. I have to pay to feed this dude behind me, and he eats a lot. So be realistic. Like Morgan said, maybe it looks like getting a job and getting a job that tailors to you pursuing this as a career. Or maybe you starting what you want to do as a hobby. You're doing it nights, you're doing it weekends, and you're working your 8 to 5 and you're saving that money. Mm-hmm. And you have to know that there's sacrifice. You know, unfortunately, when you're new, when you're starting out, particular careers don't have a lot of money at the opening level. I mean, if you're going in as an artist or an actress, chances are you're not making the same as an accounting major your first year. You know, my cousin's an accountant. That first paycheck is a lot higher than most industries. But you love what you're doing. So what does it matter that you're not going out to a steakhouse with friends? Or what does it matter that you're not buying the latest designer purse? If the difference is that you're loving every day, you know, so be realistic and make those choices, because sometimes you can't have your cake and eat it too, but you can be very happy where you're at eating your cake in the park versus the steakhouse. So make your decisions, figure out what you're willing to give up to do what you love, and, you know, decide, be realistic, and then just enjoy it and live life to the fullest where you're at and with the decisions you've made.
That's so good.
That is great advice. When I was in college, I watched a lot of my friends taking school loans, college loans. And back then, you know, I was in college in the 80s, 1980s, and that was before many of y'all were born, I know. But it was expensive back then, not quite as expensive as it is now. And I chose to go to junior college because I knew I could pay for that and I wouldn't have to take out loans. So I could stay at home. I still lived on my own with roommates, but I stayed at home, and I worked at a job, and then I paid my tuition with the money that I earned in my job and the money that I had in my tiny little savings account. But I paid my way, so that when I got up to university, I tried to do the same thing. I actually worked 3 jobs to put myself through college, and I didn't have any help or anything from my parents. They just couldn't do it. So when I got out of college, I only owed like $3,500. You know, now most people are like in the $35,000 range. But I remember making one decision. My girlfriends were going to Europe for the summer. You know, they were just going to take 10 days or whatever to go to Europe. And I said, I can't afford it. I don't have any money. They said, I don't have any money. That's all you ever say. And I said, yeah, but you know what? I'm going to have a killer time here this summer having fun at college, and you're not. So I didn't go. And you know what? I didn't make it to Europe until much, much later, just, you know, in recent years. And I've traveled a lot, but I hadn't made it overseas yet. And it's because I was always thinking, oh, you don't have any money. But you know what? Whatever you want to do, you can do it, and you can find the money, and you can, you know, make the money. So for me, it's always been about working 2 or 3 jobs if I have to, just to make myself happy. And again, I see a lot of friends who work for corporate, or they're in jobs that they don't really love, and they're miserable all the time, all day. Then they come home and they're miserable all night. And the only joy they get is like on the weekends. I have joy all day, every day. So it's a big difference. Yeah, you guys are nodding your heads.
Yeah.
When you love your job and you love your career, you know, it just makes such a big difference.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to second Diane on that being really great advice. And I think that the sad part is that a lot of, you could say, teenagers don't have, for me, personally, I'm thankful that I have all of you guys to look up to right now and to ask for advice. But I think a lot of us probably don't want to pursue a career, but we don't exactly have someone to reach out to or someone to go to in order to receive the things we need. So I think maybe here we might have some future actresses, future publishers. So our next question would be, when and where should someone begin to find the resources for a successful career in acting or publishing? What should we study in college, or what can we do outside of school?
That's great. I think the cool thing about acting specifically is there's no one right path to take, you know. We have some of our most amazing actors out there who are classically trained. They studied theater and they went through all of that. And then we also have really amazing actors that didn't go to school at all. For me personally, I think college is extremely important. I have a funny story about my mom. I was doing a film halfway. I was in my sophomore year of college. I did a film during my Christmas break that I thought was gonna like make my career, right? And I wanted to move to LA, and my mom came down to New Orleans. She packed all my suitcases and was like, "You're going back to school." And I'm really grateful that I did finish and feel a lot of pride in that. And it's something that I studied radio, TV, and film, so I learned about screenwriting, producing, and making my own projects. And I would suggest, no matter which path you take, setting something that is either going to spur your career on within acting or support that alongside. Like I talked about, having something else outside of acting. You might want to pursue something within the communication side, the marketing side, something that's going to support your career. And not to say that you need a backup plan, but something that's really going to complement pursuing something in the artistic field. I wrote down some resources. I'll put them in the chat. One of the books I definitely recommend is Audition by Michael Schertzlef. I think I'm saying his name correctly. A lot of the casting directors refer to his 12 guideposts as you're preparing your scenes. And another book is Respect for Acting by Uta Hagen. I use that one in all of my preparation. And then if you decide not to take the theater path within school, there's so many great classes out there that you can take and learn. So much you can learn from YouTube, honestly, and really like the best experience you can have within the acting field is actually just acting and getting that experience, whether you're doing scenes with friends or working on student films. Especially if you're going to a school that has a great film program, you can just volunteer to be in their scenes, and they're going to be the next Scorsese's and the next great filmmaker. So aligning yourself with them from the beginning of their careers is a really great way to kind of become their muse one day, and then you guys can kind of ride that wave together. So there's so many different ways you can go about it, but definitely do your research, study your craft, no matter how you decide to do that, and then just stay committed.
Good advice.
That's good advice. I'm going to second what Morgan said. I mean, if you want to be an actor, you need to act. If you want to be a journalist, you need to journal or blog or write an article. You know, if you want to be an artist, you need to be doing art. And so I would, one, say do what you love and do it a lot, to the point that you are kind of like, great, I have to do this again. I mean, if you want to be the best artist out there, draw 100 pairs of shoes and then draw them again. And I guarantee you by the end of that exercise, you'll know how to draw a pair of shoes. I mean, it takes work. And so do what you love in your spare time, do it on the weekends, do it at night. You know, I will not show you my apartment, but my apartment looks like I live in a hardware store because I'm very much into wood burning. And so I look like I own a craft store, because it's what I do and I love it, and I keep all the materials so that I can do it. The other part I want to point out is, so say you take the book Audition. It's one resource, right? And it's a great resource. But what is Morgan? Morgan is the source of the 5 or 10 different ideas that she just gave you. And so people are your best resource. Go talk to them. Ask them what works, what doesn't. There might be something that you need on your resume that without it, nobody's going to talk to you. And so you need to find out, like, are there barriers to entry? You know, if you want to go work for an accounting firm, they're going to ask, are you an accounting major? Do you have your certifications? And if your answer is, oh, I studied art history, they're going to be like, nice knowing you. So some different parts of your life do require some sort of certificate, some sort of endorsement, some sort of class. And so talk to people in that field and ask. Like, if you come to me and you say you want to be a freelancer, and I interview freelancers all the time, I'm going to ask you, show me your work. I don't care how you learned it. I don't care what your major was. You know, you could tell me your major was acting or accounting, and I really don't care. I want to see what you produce, because that's what matters to me. But for a talent scout, they might be looking for something different from Morgan than they would that I look for my people. And she might be looking for something different when she's getting people to work on her projects. So be bold and just, I mean, I cold called professors my entire 4 years in college. I memorized the directory number, and I'd call them and be like, can I talk to a writing professor? And they'd be like, which one? And I'm like, just take your pick. And I just, as I walked around campus every day, routinely cold called people and just said, hi, can you give me some advice about? And we just chat with them. And I got told no plenty of times, but I got told yes more than that. And so go find the experts and talk to them and figure out what they learned, because they're also going to be the people hiring you. So you're going to want to be talking to that crowd.
That's so true. Well, I learned from the people who went ahead of me. So when I was in college and I was in the newspaper staffs and those kinds of things, I kept in touch with people when they graduated and when they left. And so, so Jasmine, just like you found Morgan, who went to your school, and you knew that she had graduated from your school, so you looked her up. I did the same kind of thing with the people who went into journalism before me. So that was kind of neat. And then we have this just amazing community, and I know that you all do too in your careers, but there's an amazing community of people who do what you do, and you just get to know all the professionals as you go. But start that in high school, start that in college, right? One of the things that I wanted to emphasize is what you major in when you go to college. And just as Kristin said, it doesn't really matter necessarily once you have a degree. It doesn't matter when you go to get hired what that degree is in. What matters is the experience you bring along with it. So if you got a degree in journalism, then you have experience in journalism, because they're going to make you write. They're going to make you write articles. And so I like to say that some people are classically trained in journalism, like they would be in piano or acting, but other people are not. And so they, they start writing, and then they're not really necessarily, they don't know maybe libel laws or those kinds of things, and that will get them in trouble when they first start. But you can pick that stuff up as you go. So the nice thing is when you're in college, you can have a major and a minor, and you can even have a couple minors if you want. So I majored in journalism because I loved that, but I minored in computer science because I saw that it was going to be a big deal, and it was. And I knew that anytime if this journalism thing didn't work out, I could be a computer programmer in a heartbeat. Thank God I haven't had to do that. That would not be fun. No, I'm just teasing. Sitting behind a computer all day would not be fun. But I use that all the time, because now I think in such technical ways that writing about technology is not intimidating for me like it is for a lot of other writers. But if I had a chance to go back, maybe I would have majored in business or minored in business, because then I would have learned more about how to run a business. So you can always go back to school. That's the thing. Just get through it. Follow your heart, do what you want to do, but also, reach out to the people who are ahead of you, either right ahead of you or the ones who are much older, who are willing to mentor you. So, and mentoring can be, that can be something they can take you on for years and years, or it can be just 1 hour over coffee, so it's always good to ask people to mentor you. People like to be asked that. And if they say no, that's okay. There's always another person who will do it.
Yeah, just thank you so much for your responses for this question. Just hearing you guys for the past hour, your responses have been so amazing, and it's super hard to choose which questions to ask in these last few minutes, but we did get a question in the chat, which is, how do you know you are successful? And one of the questions that we also had was, how would you define success? And as a follow-up question, we asked, at what point in your life did you realize you had finally accomplished what you worked so hard for?
Oh boy, I gotta go first on this one. This is a really great question. How do you know you're successful? I mean, there's some technical ways you could know if you're getting the work that you want on a regular basis. There's a demand for your work. People are coming to you. You're not having to constantly ask for jobs or ask for bookings and things like that. But to me, that's great. And obviously that's something we want as we're pursuing a career and really committed to something. But for me, success looks like me showing up as my authentic self and not wavering when I see someone over here that looks like they're doing better than me, or comparing myself, or doubting myself and what I'm creating. I think that's so important, especially as artists. It's so easy to, especially in this social media world that we live in, to compare and shrink ourselves because we think, oh, we're not as far along as we should be. And I think when we're creating things, it's so important to truly be you, because no one else is going to bring that to the table. And that's what we're wanting. That's what we want to see when you watch your favorite shows. Those people are truly bringing the human experience to life in an authentic way. And those are the stories that we connect with the most. So for me, that's what success looks like. I feel like there are some days when I've reached that, and there are other days when I am not there. And I really have just been learning to give myself that grace along the way, and being able to recognize, okay, I need to like fall back and not judge myself, and get back to that place where I'm creating from my authentic self.
That's a brilliant answer. Very successful answer. So the meaning of the word successful is to accomplish an aim or purpose. And so I would caution everybody to not be tied to one success, because what a sad and boring life that would be, to always be striving for only a success. And so I'm all about the little joys. Like, I'm the person who write a list at the top of the list so I can check it off.
I do that too. It's hilarious.
I mean, think about it. Accomplish things and accomplish them well. You know, the very first time I finished my first article, from there to the time I was announced in front of a huge crowd that I was publisher of the Women's Enterprise magazines. I mean, those were both successes. But success might be checking off my list for the day, or success might be getting to 3 p.m. and being like, I don't have anything to do. I can get stuff done that I want to do. You know, and trust me, y'all will get there where there's that feeling of like, ooh, extra time. Celebrate successes all the time. Make yourself small goals that lead up to a big goal, but never tie yourself to one single success, because I think then you miss the journey to get there, and you miss 100 million successes for the sake of one. And, you know, like Diane said, she gets joy every day of the week versus just 2 days a week. If you're only looking at one big success, you're missing all the joy 24/7 while you're trying to pursue that. And I think that's why you see sometimes people that become very, very successful in a very obvious way are just really discontent with what they've achieved. And so, you know, be realistic, set the small goals, celebrate, you know, little tiny things, celebrate writing your list. I think you'll be a happier person, and being a happier, more productive person is going to make you more successful. So it's a really nice upward spiral to success.
Beautifully said.
Great answer. You know, one way people like to measure success is things like awards. And so every time I've gotten a journalism award, I've been so proud, you know, this is so cool. But nobody ever really knows that necessarily. You know, you might get it in a room full of your peers and that kind of thing. One of the biggest awards I got was the WBE Hall of Fame award. And Kristin knows about this. Her boss is in charge of that award. And that was a huge thrill. I was on a stage in front of a lot of my peers, and it was just so great. And the reason I love that one the most is because it meant that I was making a difference in the lives of WBEs, which means Women Business Enterprises. So that is not something I've necessarily done through my job like Kristin has. That's something I've done through my volunteer work with Go for the Greens and other companies or organizations. So those are some things where, you know, the success is what you feel in your heart, like, oh my gosh, I've made a difference. I've accomplished something. You know, I can remember like getting my first page 1 story in the newspaper. And that was, to me, that was a big success that day. But then the next day, you know, I needed to do another thing to feel success. So, so it's a constant thing, you know, it's something you feel. And at some point you get to the point where you're like, you know what, I don't have to feel those little successes anymore. I feel, you know, pretty happy every day. And that to me is success. It doesn't mean your bank account. It doesn't mean your title, even though those are cool things to have. It's the happiness you feel in your heart. Right?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your responses. And with a broken heart, I have to say that that was our last question for you guys. This was so much fun, and I think that I speak for all of us when I say that we definitely benefit from hearing you guys talk about your experiences and what it is that you guys faced and how you overcame them. So thank you so much for joining us, and we really hope that we could do a part 2. And I'm going to turn it over to Cindy. Like I said, that was our last question and our time is up. But thank you so much. You guys are amazing, and I really hope that we can talk to you guys a second time.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was awesome. Boy, you did a great job giving me the lob. All right, so wow, I learned a lot. So I just real quick, I want to recap a couple things. Boy, Kristin, right on the fly. That was awesome. I think it's on the fly. Otherwise, it's ingrained in your head. The meaning of the word successful: accomplishing an aim or a purpose. Geez, that's something that everybody, doesn't matter if you're, you know, younger or older or what have you, as long as you want to define success, that's something that is really critical. So thank you for saying that. Morgan, I really, really enjoyed listening to all the things that you've done. I keep hearing this word and it kind of drives me a little crazy, so I won't use the word pivot. But I'll just say changing direction, but you know, maintaining a constant course. So I thought it was really cool about how you talked about what's happened with you to maintain your success and move forward by, you know, you left New York, you know, you're now in Dallas, and you're continuing to do things, you know, in a different virtual world, but you're doing what you need to do rather than be disgruntled and have your head down low. You're pushing through and you're being an example for yourself, obviously, number one, but you're doing it for others that are watching you, especially those that are on today and will be watching you in the future. And then Diane, of course, this one was really cool. Besides you wanting to be a prince, that one was very interesting. I'd like you to see you be a prince. But I thought it was really neat that you wanted to, you know, set your own, and you're always happy. You have joy out of what you're doing every day. Not a lot of people can say that, and that if anybody, you know, can do that, that is also a definition of success. If every day you can say, I love what I do and I can do what I love, that is achievement in itself. So I just want to say thank you. I look forward to see the reposting of this, and Kristin and Morgan, if you decide, if you have the time to come back, if you also have the time potentially to come to Go for the Greens, because as of right now, we're still going to be doing something in September, and we would love to have you. If we can't, then always look, you know, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or what have you, and we will do everything that we can to continue to, Morgan, help support your career. And Kristin, of course, we always are a fan of We USA and anything that we can do to do that. But thank you, everybody. Really appreciate today's event. And I always have to, I'll take off my glasses. I will bow down to Leslie and Jasmin, because you two continue to grow every time, and you are such exceptional mentors for the rest of the people that are on this call listening and watching you grow again. So thank you. And Diane, now if you can switch your hat to be co-founder and say the parting words, we'll go ahead and close this out and see everybody next week when we have a very cool, another very cool event.
Okay, thanks everybody. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. And we will see you next week, same time. Have a wonderful Memorial Day holiday.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.